Welcome to Everything Pro Wrestling. Everything Pro Wrestling is a show by the fans, for the fans. And I am your host, Conrad Cushman, and we are here today with a review of ECW's Barely Legal 1997. ECW. Those three letters revolutionized the pro wrestling business. And I know a lot of people hear ECW and they just think that it's that hardcore wrestling garbage and blah, 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 blood, guts, whatever. I think ECW was more than that. And when I hear the letters ECW, the first thing that comes to my mind is passion. The ECW brand was filled with passionate wrestlers who were willing to do anything it took to make it and gain some respect in the beautiful industry that is professional wrestling. And on this day, April 13th, 1997, in the ECW Arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, ECW held its first ever pay-per-view event, Barely Legal 1997. And boy, was this a show to be talked about. The show opens up with Joey Styles in the ring, welcoming the Philadelphia crowd. They are rambunctious. There are people jumping in front of the cameras. This is anything unlike the crowds that you get today. I know that we talk about the WWE fan base and how they are today. They're just a large amount of people who love pro wrestling. I get it. Nothing being taken away from them. I know people have the TNA or the Impact Wrestling diehards, the Ring of Honor guys who used to collect all the DVDs and everything else. But to me, there is no other fan base like the ECW fan base. There are people who are in their crowd that are just known. If you look at the hard camera side, there is the guy with the straw hat that's always there and the Hawaiian shirt. There are just so many classic fans, and it's just interesting to see young kids, older college kids, and even older adult males in the crowd just going crazy. Even the girls are in the crowd going gaga over the guys. And it's just very interesting. If you've never watched an ECW event, I would highly recommend you start off with this one. So Joey Styles is in the ring welcoming everyone to the event. And as he starts running down the card a little bit, here comes the Dudley Boyz. Now, at this time, the Dudley Boyz were just hitting their stride. They had just finally won the ECW Tag Team Championships, and they were just starting to get their heelish tendencies right, and everything was starting to gel with them very well. And they come out, and Devon gets on the microphone, healing it up. Devon is starting his testify and giving everybody the business. And there are chants of F you, Devon, coming from the crowd. This is how rowdy they used to get. And Devon heals it up, just telling them to shut up. They're all pieces of garbage. Yada, yada, yada. We get to then the ECW intro for the pay-per-view. Excellent, well put together video package. Excuse me. Just very well done. I've always enjoyed how ECW managed to bring pop culture at that time and their wrestling and merge them into one, even in the video packages. And I thought they did a very good job in this. So we cut back to the in-ring action. And we have Joel Gertner, who introduces the Dudleys. And everybody knows Joel Gertner. Well, well, well. It is I, the quintessential stud muffin, Joel Gertner. And I could go on and do one of his nasty innuendos, but you guys don't want to hear all that. He introduces the Dudleys and Sign Guy Dudley. And the first match is for the ECW Tag Team Championships. We have the Dudleys, who are the champions, versus the Eliminators. And you may recognize one of the names for the Eliminators. It's Perry Saturn and his partner, John Cronus. And these guys were absolutely amazing back in the day. And we're going to talk about it throughout the match. The Eliminators come out and they make a beeline right to the ring. And the Dudleys run out of the ring with their family. And Sign Guy Dudley comes into the ring and he gets total elimination right before the match even starts because he tried to hit one of the Eliminators with a sign. Very foolish move. And the Eliminators finisher is total elimination, which is similar to it's like a better version of what the Ascension do. It's like a leg sweep and a kicking combo. I've seen them take people's heads off with this move, and it looks fantastic when they do it. The Dudleys come in and they start the double team moves early on, but immediately after that, the Eliminators get the upper hand, and it is a GG for the Dudleys. They come in, and I just can't believe how athletic that Saturn and Kronos were when they were in the ring doing all of this. They were doing flips, leg drops, things that you would never imagine to see Perry Saturn do when he's in WWE. But or even WCW for that matter, Saturn really had a lot of skills, and I felt like his athleticism is very underestimated in pro wrestling fans' eyes. The Eliminators had very unique tag team moves, very explosive, and a very unique move set. You don't see a lot of the double team moves and a lot of the stuff they were doing in this match anymore. Very underrated as a tag team, as well as their team chemistry and how they gelled throughout this match. Total elimination happens on Bubba Ray Dudley. They are dominated. 1, 2, 3. The Eliminators win back their ECW tag team titles. And after the match, Joel Gertner gets on the microphone and says that on a rating of a stud muffin scale, the score was 86-83, and that the Dudley boys were still the tag team champions. You know, the Eliminators weren't going for that. And it felt very foolish for him to get in the ring and say that while they were standing up. And he eats a total elimination, and he falls down looking foolish and all. But this one was for the good guys. The Eliminators win. I give it a grade of a B-. I felt that they could have done more here, but for what both of the teams were doing at the time, it made sense to have the Eliminators dominate this contest. So a grade of a B- works for them. But remember, the Dudley boys would go on to have big success still, and that's why we talk about them as one of the greatest tag teams today. After that, we go back to Joey Styles, who is hyping the three-way dance that he was interrupted for earlier. And he goes to hyping it at the basically his post where he does commentary. Joey Styles does commentary by himself. And that's absolutely amazing, in my opinion, that he is able to do that and just go on. And he really didn't need anybody next to him to make this feel special. So big shout out to the man, Joey Styles, for that. We cut back into the ring. We see Mr. No Gimmicks, Chris Candido. He was supposed to have a match with Lance Storm, but it's canceled due to Candido having a bicep tear. And he comes out and cuts a promo. Chris Candido was never the best on the microphone. I really miss him in ring, though. I always thought that he was a hell of a talent and someone who never got to really showcase his full capabilities anywhere but ECW. But he comes out, he gets the reactions that he does, and even pounds up Lance Storm. We see a young Lance Storm here, and he has a mean ponytail. It's kind of blonde, and it looks so bad, so 90s and 80s-ish. And he's facing Rob Van Dam as the replacement now. And I don't know, RVD's getting sellout chants. I think this is around the time where he's doing his angle of being Mr. Monday Night, and he wrestles on Monday Night Raw, and he's basically playing towards the WWF at the time. And it's weird in this match to see Lance Storm as the babyface and Rob Van Dam as the heel, because I think that they both ended up playing better roles opposite of each other for that. I think RVD's a way better babyface, and I think Lance Storm's a way better heel. But in this match, though, it still was very interesting to see their styles and watching them work. So great athleticism is one of the things I have written down for both of them. I saw a lot of moves to where Lance Storm was able to run up, jump up on the top rope, and catch Rob Van Dam, whether it was with an elbow, some type of move. Lance Storm really had it all. He was the total package of a wrestler at this time. And Rob Van Dam, his unique style, the rolling thunders, all the kicks that he could do, very good. And I thought that they both played off of each other very well. Lance Storm kicked out of a 5-star frog splash in this match. So that move was not established as his finisher quite yet. And I was very surprised to see that going back and rewatching this. And I was just like, man, Lance Storm kicked out of that. And there were several kickouts throughout it all, but in the end, a Van Terminator gets Rob Van Dam the win, the 1, 2, 3, and RVD cuts a promo afterwards. Nothing too serious, but overall, I would give this a grade of a B. Nothing bad from these guys, but I still think that they would have better matches later on when they switch and flip the roles later on in the year. Match number 3, we have an international 6-man tag team match. We have the BWO, and this isn't the real BWO. This is representative of some names you may be familiar with: Taka Michinoku, Dick Togo, and Terry Boy. Sorry about that. I thought I had Bay there. Terry Boy, and they are taking on the team of Gran Hamada. What is this? Masato, Yakushiji, and the Great Sasuke. Very different to see this kind of match. And the Great Sasuke and Taka Michinoku are kind of like the student protege. So you knew that they were going to have some good chemistry in this match. This is a good mix for the ECW fans with the international fandom, like the New Japan Pro Wrestling guys in there. And there was some good stuff in this match. And it was a nice breakup to have actual wrestling on the show. I know you got that with Rob Van Dam and Lance Storm, but you got some international wrestling, something that's a little bit different. People could get into it, but it's kind of a variety show. So it helped out. Joey Styles talks about Taka Michinoku being a future star, and I absolutely see it throughout this match. He was right, because think about it. A year later, Taka Michinoku was in the WWF competing for the light heavyweight championship. And even guys like Great Sasuke were over there fighting him as well. And I think Dick Togo went over there with him when they did Kaientai. The match is all over with people coming in and out of the ring. Once you're thrown out, someone else is jumping in, but it works. It keeps the flow of the match going, similar to something you would see in like AAA or Lucha Libre wrestling. Lots of good triple team moves, even some stuff you would see in Fire Pro, the whole 3 guys pounded on someone's back and someone falls to the ground. And when you see these guys, you'll recognize some of them. If you've played like the old Fire Pro games, you'll see some of the wrestlers on there and just say, hey, that guy looks an awful lot like this dude from Fire Pro. That's because they have copied from the New Japan Pro Wrestling. Now, we get back to the match here. There were lots of good moves, as I said, but in the match, Taka hits the Michinoku driver on the Great Sasuke, and I was surprised that he was saved at the 2 count. A lot of back and forth in this match, high flying moves, whatever you wanted to see. I thought a lot of very cool taunts were done as part of triple team moves, basically like holding a guy's arms, flattening his back, and having someone pose on top of him. Very cool to see stuff like that at that time. Now, we also had a dragon suplex with a bridge on Taka Michinoku from the Great Sasuke, and 1, 2, 3, the match was over. But I do have to say that this match was a B+. Excellent work by everyone involved in here, and I think it's a match that even if you don't know too much about ECW, this shows that there are good wrestling matches as well in ECW, and this one was a lot of fun, in my opinion. Match number 4. It is for the ECW Television Championship. We have the current champion, Shane Douglas, the franchise, with Francine versus Pitbull number 2. Now, it opens up with a promo by ECW's first champion, the franchise Shane Douglas, backstage talking. Francine's putting on makeup. Francine, absolutely, always someone who I just thought was beautiful. I don't know what it is about her, but she was always easy on the eyes, and I could see exactly why they put her as a valet with some of these guys. Easily works. We saw Pitbull number 1, who was injured, sitting in the front row. Gary Wolf sitting there, and they show the whole. If you've ever seen like ECW promos, he had the halo on, and the franchise shook his halo after he broke his neck, and just so much messed up stuff that ECW used to do to play on people's emotions. So we're watching this on the WWE Network, and it's funny, Pitbull number 2 had Mike Knox's old theme, so I just shook my head as soon as he came out. This match felt like a cool-off match. So unlike some of the other shows, this cool-off match basically happened after 3 matches. So this is the 4th match in, and this is to kind of settle the crowd. And I don't know if it was designed to do that, but that's exactly how it felt. There were even fans chanting boring, and there's lots of slowdown in this match. It was worked at a different kind of pace than all the other matches we had seen. I mean, we had the Taka Michinoku, Great Sasuke, Rob Van Dam, Lance Storm, and we come to this. And even the first match with the Dudley boys and the Eliminators, dude, it was over very quickly. I think that match, the first match lasted 6 minutes. Well, this one goes on for quite some time. I want to say this was about a 20-minute match, if I'm not mistaken. If not, give or take 5 minutes. But the match starts off really slow, and I understand the storytelling that was behind it, but the crowd really wasn't feeling it. They were chanting terrible things that I can't repeat about Francine. Let's just say it rhymes with "she's a bore." And then you got some interference from Chris Candido in the match, and that's basically how the franchise retains its title with a big belly-to-belly suplex, which was his finish. 1, 2, 3. Pitbull number 2 loses after some revenge from Pitbull number 1 was gained by him fighting the franchise, but he was also taken out at the same time because he's injured. And you get a swerve. So basically, afterwards, you hear Rick Rude's voice appear, and I don't know what the exact storyline was, if Rude couldn't appear or whatever, but Rude had been talking crap to the franchise, and he said that basically he wanted to come out there and get the girl, and they talked about his sex drive being high, whatever. So this guy comes out with the old ravishing Rick Rude blue robe on. He's got the mask on his face that Rude's been wearing, and he looks like he's ready. So he gets in the ring. The franchise knocks the guy down and starts trying to rip the mask off, which he does. And then Rick Rude is actually one of the security people who were ringside and reveals himself. And he comes into the ring and he puts a beat down on Shane Douglas real bad. And it turns out that Brian Lee was the person under the mask. They clear house. Overall, I give it a grade of a C. I don't hate it because I understood the storytelling behind this match and everything that happened afterwards. But at the same time, they could have did a lot better, I think, with how they did it. And I think the match could have been a lot shorter than what people had to deal with. And now we're going to move into like the main event matches. But before we do that, let's talk about some college basketball, and let's visit our friends from Everything College Basketball, Josh Burton and Peyton Burton, and they will let you know how you can listen to their show.
Hey everyone, I'm Josh Burton, inviting you all to come join the fastest growing group dedicated solely to college basketball, Everything College Basketball. Just go to Facebook and in the search bar type in Everything College Basketball. Once you've joined, feel free to begin chatting with other diehard college hoops nuts like yourself. Also, while you're there, go check out the podcasts on Anchor, Podbean, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just search up Everything College Basketball Podcast, and as always, like, share, and subscribe. Ooh yeah, dig it!
Also, if you guys didn't know, I was recently a guest on the Everything College Basketball episode 7, so make sure you guys go through their archives and check that out. But let's get back to ECW Barely Legal 1997. So after that television title match, we get to Raven cutting a promo backstage on the triple threat match. The triple threat match will determine the number 1 contender and the winner who will face Raven later on tonight for the ECW championship. Quote to Raven, nevermore. Now, we get a Taz promo backstage on Sabu. Taz cuts one of his famous promos to where he's got the ripped up towel on his head, and he's talking about how he's going to choke Sabu out and how Sabu's the man in this industry, and they have built up this feud for 18 months. That's a very long time for a feud to build up, and I think Paul Heyman was quite smart when he waited for this buildup and he saved this matchup for so long. And I always felt like it was two of his very early success stories in guys that he helped make in ECW. When I hear ECW, the names Taz and Sabu are synonymous with that brand. And I absolutely believe that they did the right thing here. Now, we're going to build up towards that match now. So we have Taz with Bill Alfonso versus Sabu. The anticipation for this match was crazy. ECW fans were picking sides. The diehards had a hard time picking between both the guys because they were both so loved by the fan base. And they are two of ECW's biggest badasses, to be honest. So when you go back and you really think about this match, I know a lot of people are wondering, well, could it live up to the hype and couldn't it? And I have some thoughts about it. I'll save it for the end before I get into that. But for this match, guys, Sabu is bleeding early on after Taz gives him several crossface shots. Like, Sabu didn't even have an entrance in this. He just kind of ran out and he was in the ring. And early on, he blocks the Taz mission, but Taz is basically giving him these crossface shots that looked brutal. And I couldn't tell if he popped him in the ear or his nose, but Sabu started bleeding pretty bad. And Sabu is doing some crazy stuff as well. He knows that he's got to hit some of these double springboard suicide planchas. He jumped over the guardrail on top of Taz. They're in the crowd fighting. The ECW fans are going crazy for this match. I really enjoyed both wrestlers' style in this. Sabu has a mixture of like this high flying and he's kind of hardcore and reckless at the same time. But when he was on his A game, Sabu could be very good. And even at some points in this match, he had some botches, but when Sabu is on, he is really good. Taz always felt like a small guy who was made to be taken seriously. Paul Heyman always did an excellent job with basically accentuating the positives about you and hiding or minimalizing what was bad about you. And Taz was a small guy, but if Taz could choke out big guys and take them out, it made Taz feel 15 times the size that he was. And that's exactly how Paul Heyman built him up. And he was no longer doing this crazy, weird Tasmanian devil gimmick. He made Taz a legit badass. And I don't know if he was in real life, but Taz was choking people out, and I believed it as a kid. So Taz was using suplexes, submissions. He had a command presence about him, and he was just a brawler. And when I hear the letters ECW, both of these wrestlers come to mind, as I said earlier. Now, the finish comes from after multiple Tazplexes. I mean, Sabu was getting dumped on his head. There was one where he got dumped on his neck, kind of. And this all started because Taz broke Sabu's neck doing a kind of like a plex like this. And he landed on his neck, broke his neck. He was out for 18 months. But he's doing these moves on Sabu. He's landing. Sabu is getting up and then falling right back down. He delivers so many of them that it's like, how could you expect the guy to last on this? They had cool table spots throughout this, but after these multiple Tazplexes throughout the match, it got real bad towards the end, hitting a bunch of them. And Taz is eventually able to put on the Taz mission, and Taz wins by submission. They raised Sabu's hand 3 times, and he wasn't getting up from it. He took a pretty bad beat down. Now, after the match, Taz puts Sabu over on the microphone and says that, actually it was pretty cool because a fan yelled, "Shut up" or something to Taz, and then Taz said, "No, you shut up, I'm talking right now." And I miss people being able to take like that command presence I was talking about on the microphone instantly, just like that, and take control of his show. And he came out, he reached his hand out to Sabu, shook his hand. Sabu shook his hand, and Rob Van Dam ends up coming out and attacking Taz. And Sabu sits there for a second wondering, but then he ends up putting the boots to Taz as well. And Rob Van Dam and Sabu are tag partners, and they end up putting a beat down on him. And after the match, they come out, and Sabu joins in on the attack, like I said. They put Taz through a table, and Bill Alfonso eventually is yelling at them, talking to them, and he takes off his shirt and reveals that underneath his Team Taz shirt, Bill Alfonso is wearing a Sabu and Rob Van Dam shirt, basically showing that they are a new alliance. This match was not bad. I give it an overall grade of a B+, but let me go back to what I was talking about, though, originally. So a lot of fans at that time were complaining about this match not being able to live up to the hype that was put behind it. And if you go back and look at it, it's one of those matches that you wonder, well, how can it live up to the hype with that 18-month build that Paul Heyman put behind it? Fans were probably expecting this bloodbath from ECW and people being dumped on their necks, pile drivers through tables, and you just can't do that every single time. And if you go back and watch it now in today's retrospect, I feel a lot of those people will say that the match isn't as bad as you think it would be. I really think this is a good match, one of the better matches on this card, and I absolutely love it. And when I get to my overall view, there's a point about this match that I'll make that I think fits so very well. Yeah, the finish was good, I thought, with Taz getting the definitive win, and that's exactly what people wanted, just to see somebody win this match. And it's something that I felt they could have continued later on. And I won't ruin it for you and tell you what happens afterwards with this, but very interesting. So we get to the next part. Tommy Dreamer is introduced as the guest color commentator for this. If I could talk right there. Whoa. Guest color commentator for this next match. And it's the triple threat match, or I'm sorry, they called it a three-way dance at the time. So the three-way dance, winner faces Raven for the ECW title. We had Big Stevie Cool, a.k.a. Stevie Richards, versus the Sandman versus Terry Funk. And as I mentioned before earlier with the match with Taka Michinoku, the BWO is over. And that's who Taka and them came out representing, wearing all the BWO stuff. But Stevie Richards, Blue Meanie, Nova, those guys coming out doing the NWO stuff at that time, people ate it up, and it was all meant to be part of this whole gimmick that Raven absolutely adored. And they tried to go out and basically, I wouldn't even say Raven adored it, but they were going out to try to entertain Raven as part of his nest at the time. Also, the Sandman came out. His entrance ruined on the WWE Network, by the way, because it doesn't have the proper theme, so you don't really get the feeling of that's really behind it. And that's something I urge everyone to see, is seek out the real entrances and everything else for this, because I think it's something very special. The Sandman's completely over, though, and Sandman's someone who really wasn't the greatest wrestler, but he was all entrance and character, and people loved him. And you also had Terry Funk, who was just an absolute legend in the business. Even at this time, you just knew Terry Funk was that guy. I remember him from WCW days fighting Ric Flair. Terry Funk, just amazing. And we're going to talk about him while we talk about this match. So what makes this three-way dance unique is that we didn't see too many matches like this during that time, especially in 1997. I mean, we had just came off of seeing maybe like a fatal four-way. We had matches like that, but an ECW three-way dance was something completely different. This was done elimination style, and only one person could win. So ECW, dare I say, was the first to do this and do it well in the States. This match used triple headlocks, double team moves, double team double cross moves. Terry Funk did a moonsault at a ladder at one point at 53 years of age. How in the hell is Terry Funk doing that at 53? Nobody knows. Terry Funk even put a ladder around his neck and spun around with it, taking everybody out, and an absolute beautiful spot for him to do because he's middle-aged and crazy. Big Stevie Cool is the first person eliminated after he eats a double power bomb from the Sandman and Terry Funk, and both of them pin him. After that, we have Terry Funk and Sandman who are fighting each other. Terry Funk and Sandman in this match, I don't know, this match felt so reckless at some points, like people throwing trash cans and hitting people in the head, dropping ladders on people's necks and in the back of the heads. It made me cringe a little bit watching it today because it's so different from the protection that we see today in today's wrestling. Back to what we were saying here. At one point, Terry Funk whipped Sandman with some barbed wire, which looked freaking crazy. And when Sandman gets the upper hand, Sandman wraps his body in the barbed wire. And Stevie Richards, I should say, who's on the apron, comes up. Sandman runs up and basically runs into him. And Stevie Richards yells from having that happen to him. And he jumps down. And Terry Funk winds up putting a trash can over the top of Sandman's head. And a super kick from Stevie Richards knocks down the Sandman. And Terry Funk then delivers another moonsault with the trash can still on top of his head. 1, 2, 3. Terry Funk is your winner of this match. Absolutely crazy triple threat match. Nothing, you're not going to see beautiful holds in this throughout the entire match, but this is just a fight, and I thought it was very well done, especially for that time for a triple threat. I gave it an A-. I thought that they did a really good job, and in my honest opinion, it's match of the night. These guys really delivered on this for Stardom. They came out there, they put in the work for the match, and Terry Funk shocked you with what he was able to do during this day and age. So kudos to him for that. Immediate follow-up. And I debated on putting this as a separate grade, but I feel like it should because it's a completely different match. Tommy Dreamer's on commentary throughout that whole time too, basically sticking up for Terry Funk. But now he's worried because Raven just runs out, no music or anything. Raven comes out and starts attacking Terry Funk, and he performs a drop toe hold on Terry Funk onto the chair, and Terry Funk gets busted open really bad. A doctor has to come into the ring to check on Terry Funk. Meanwhile, Raven sets up a table, and he gets Terry Funk on the outside, punching him, punching the doctor, and he dives over the top rope, which is a famous spot, once again, that you'll see on a lot of ECW highlight reels. And Raven dives over the top and landing right on top of Terry Funk, who has a nasty laceration I noticed on his back. And I don't know if that came from the spots with the barbed wire or what, but freaking disgusting to see him bleeding like that. So afterwards, Raven gets on the mic and he's yelling at Dreamer, who's his big rival, actually. And Tommy Dreamer gave up his spot in this match to put Terry Funk in to give Funk a chance. And Raven's yelling at Dreamer. They have a little back and forth. Big Dick Dudley comes out of nowhere and attacks Tommy Dreamer. And then he hits him with a trash can in his head, basically. And Dreamer is then grabbed for a chokeslam. Dreamer is picked up for the chokeslam, but he ends up kicking Big Dick Dudley right in the family Dudley jewels. And he grabs him and he chokeslams him through a stack of tables, and Big Dick Dudley goes down like a ton of bricks. And the fans are going nuts for it. All you hear is ECW, ECW, ECW. And the fans are going nuts, and Tommy Dreamer's on his way to the ring now. Raven continues the beat down on Terry Funk for a second until Tommy Dreamer gets down there, and Dreamer and Raven go at it for a minute, leading to Dreamer hitting a DDT on Raven. And the referee is starting to stir a little bit. Funk gets on top for the cover. 1, 2. It looks like Raven's supposed to kick out, but the ref counts 3. And the bell rings. It's kind of botched a little bit, but the ref says it's only 2. It's only 2. And then immediately after, Terry Funk gets a roll up. 1, 2, 3. We have a new ECW champion, and it's Terry Funk at 53 years old. And Terry Funk absolutely earned this, and I thought it put a lot of credibility behind the ECW title. Terry Funk came out there to do work with certain people, and if you've ever listened to some of the ECW documentaries about this, Terry Funk knew who he wanted to work with. He said, oh, I could do something special with this guy. I could do something special with this guy, and this guy. And Terry Funk made it work, and good for him to win this title. The fans were so happy to see Terry Funk win the belt. It was very cool. Overall grade for that match is a C. Like I said, there really wasn't too much to it. I basically gave you the entire play-by-play on that match. And thumbs up, though. It wasn't a bad C. It was just there wasn't a lot to it. And it kind of blended from the triple threat match previous to that. Now, overall show grade. When you go back and look at this show, how does it measure up? I think that it's met with fondness because the ECW brand, as I said before, was very special to a lot of people, especially that Philadelphia crowd. That is the home, the heart and soul of ECW. And I know it's basically the entire East Coast that loved ECW, including New York City. They even had some shows here in Buffalo at the Burt Flickinger Center, which was my community college. Very cool. But ECW just had that special bond with their fans that just made it so different, and it's something that I wish stuck around a little bit longer. I think that ECW, and we can get into maybe one day the reason why ECW went down and everything else, but this just put a smile on my face, making me remember what it was like to watch wrestling as a kid. I had to be like 10 to 12 years old at the time, and I just remember trying to stay up to watch ECW that came on the Empire Network out here in Buffalo, New York. And it came on only at 2 o'clock in the morning, and sometimes you would get it on Saturday, sometimes you wouldn't, so it was very hard to find. But overall show, B, very unique stuff when it came down to this. And a point about this show that I wanted to make that I was talking about in all the matches. Here are some of the misses for me. The licensed music is a very big part of this. It's very difficult to watch it without it. And I understand why WWE, they can't afford to pay for that. Shout out to Paul Heyman, too, for getting away with using some of the music. Like, if you don't know, Tommy Dreamer's theme was Alice in Chains, Man in the Box. I'm trying to think. Sandman used Enter Sandman by Metallica. I think Raven had Offspring for a theme. Paul Heyman was a genius in how he got that to work, and his father was a lawyer, so he was able to make that happen. But very unique stuff throughout this entire show. And a lot of the moments that are shown on this show are things that later became clipped into intros for ECW shows, like Raven diving through that table, Rob Van Dam doing flips on the outside, Sabu versus Taz with the Taz plexes, and the spot where Sabu gets slammed through the table. So many of these things wound up on ECW highlight packages, and this show was something special. And if you guys can go on YouTube and look it up, Paul Heyman gives a tremendous speech to the ECW locker room that shows the passion that I talked about in the very beginning of this. Paul Heyman absolutely kicked ass and was able to motivate his guys, and this was one hell of a show. They had fans call up pay-per-view networks and try to get this show. And did all of them get it? Absolutely not. But ECW had such a crazy fan base that they made sure that this event wound up on pay-per-view. And some people are going to say that it got between 45,000 to 104 buys. I don't care, because WWE was getting 176,000 buys during that same time frame with the In Your House pay-per-view, and that's damn good. So ECW, you did a great job on this pay-per-view, and I will never ever forget this brand. And I think that it's a passion that you want to see from all your fans, and ECW will always mean something special to me. Before we wrap up episode 41 of the Everything Pro Wrestling podcast, I do want to correct number one. It was 104,000 buys. I know before I just went back and listened to everything, and I know I said 104, but it's 104,000 is what I meant to say. Also, I have to give a big shout out to my man Paul Morrison and his band for allowing me to use their music that I use every single week on this podcast on the intro. So shout out to Residency. Also, big shout out to Robert Anderson, who helped collab on the idea of me doing this for a podcast. It seemed like we had the same idea when we were talking back and forth on Messenger. So, Robert Anderson, big shout out to you. Hopefully, we can have you on the show next week as we get ready to preview the Royal Rumble soon. Also, let's talk about giving a shout out to my Wrestling Roundtable panel that I was on YouTube with last week as we talked about NXT TakeOver UK. We had my good friend Fowl, who hosted the whole thing. I was also on there with Omega Luke and Wilfred Watches. I started calling us the Four Horsemen of YouTube, but I really appreciate those guys. They have great wrestling knowledge, awesome YouTube channels and podcasts. So if you guys haven't, please make sure you go and subscribe to their channels. They are awesome and good friends of mine. Also, make sure you check out Everything Pro Wrestling on YouTube. We hit the 250 subscriber mark. We are on the road to 500. Let's get there real quick, guys. It took us a long time to get to 250. Let's make it even faster and get to 500 if you're listening to this and you have a YouTube channel. Also, for the podcast, guys, I don't care how you listen to it, whether you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn, it doesn't matter. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. It really helps out the numbers. And if you're enjoying the content, I want to know. I want to hear from you. So give us a follow on Twitter at EPW Show. And guys, with all that being said, I appreciate and love everyone who took the time out to listen to this. And I think there's only one way to end this show.